Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am Kris. This is requested. How India fooled America and Pakistan to become a nuclear power? ? Geopolitical case study. Did you like that? So I'm gonna start reading things from now on. Click on that. Click on that. Oh, Think School. How humanity almost destroyed itself. It's not true. Humanity's never been close to destroying itself. What are they talking about? Okay, before we get started, if you can click that and then click that, helps me out. And then you click here and you can donate to the channel if you'd like. And then request a video. Your name sponsors the video. Let's get into it.
Today, at 15:45 hours, India conducted 3 underground nuclear tests in the Pokhran range.
Just last week, India conducted a series of nuclear explosive tests. So again, I ask India to halt its nuclear weapons program and join the 149 other nations that have already signed the Comprehensive Test Ban.
Pakistan, China, the United States of America, and several other countries sharply reacted to the Indian nuclear tests.
लेकिन भारत ने इन सभी आलोचनाओं को किनारे करते हुए 13 मई को फिर से पोखरण में 2 और परमाणु परीक्षण किए।
A widespread atomic power industry in the world will necessitate an international society in which the major states have agreed to maintain peace.
I will say this. If you're going... Excuse me. If you're going to make a nuclear warhead, you kind of need to test it. I know that sounds stupid, but you kind of need to test it to know what you have, and if it failed, research and development, you need to know. And you need to make that test, and the world needs to see it. Like this, if it was an underground test, the world needs to see it to know, okay, 1, it's not good that another country has nuclear weapons, but 2, another country has nuclear weapons, so we've all seen it. It would be like the North, I will always go back to it, North Sentinelese Island, right? The tribe that lives there. If out of the blue they were like, hey, by the way, we have nuclear weapons, we'd be like, shut up. You have nuclear weapons? Sure you do, bud. And then they exploded one, we'd be like, okay, damn, didn't expect that. It's one thing to say it, it's another thing to show it in a way. Now, you may have just blown up all that you had, but nobody else knows that. You could say, we tested it, it worked. We have 7 others, and we know now that these work, so now we know that these other 7 work, and people are going to be like, oh, okay, I see how you are, okay. But if you just say you have them, people are always, okay, they say they have it. Sure they do. And I'm not laughing, but you have to test. And how do you test? You have to explode one. And then everyone knows that you have it. But it's, it just goes hand in hand to me. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong.
तलवार की नोक पर या एटम बॉम्ब के डर से कोई हमारे देश को झुकाना चाहे, दबाना चाहे, ये देश हमारा दबने वाला नहीं।
Hi everybody! Ever since the Russia-Ukraine war and China-Taiwan conflict have escalated, the world has been constantly talking about one very, very important...
I'm sorry, what did he say? Oh my goodness. I thought he said Russia and China. Let me go back. I just want to make sure I heard this right.
Hi everybody! Ever since the Russia-Ukraine war and China-Taiwan conflict have...
Okay. I thought that was Russia bombarding China with nuclear weapons. And I was like, what the hell's happening right now? I apparently have not caught the news in a good day or two.
Escalated, the world has been constantly talking about one very, very important factor, and that is the possibility of a nuclear war.
Для защиты России и нашего народа мы, безусловно, используем все имеющиеся в нашем распоряжении средства. Это не блеф.
And today, while every single country in this world is striving to make a mark in the world economy, one of the most powerful instruments of war is a country's ability to use a nuclear bomb. And did you know, before we became the second fastest growing economy, before we became a $2 trillion economy, there was a time when US, UK, China and Pakistan together tried to bully India and tried to suppress our power. And this threat was so high that the US even considered dropping a nuclear bomb. Yes, you heard that right.
Indian intelligence reports indicated that the President Nixon had dispatched the 7th Fleet led by 75,000-ton nuclear-powered aircraft carrier USS Enterprise.
I had the microphone on, apparently. Just to be fair, do I believe Nixon would have done it? No. Do I believe it was being considered? Sure. There are always crazy people in every cabinet around the world, in every government thing, who are kind of like, let's just drop some nukes and see what happens. There's always those people. After we had dropped the 2 atomic bombs on Japan for the Korean, was it the Korean War? Yeah, the Korean War, because that was before Vietnam. The Korean War, was it Douglas MacArthur? Douglas MacArthur wanted to nuke China because they were sending troops over the border. So if it was up to Douglas MacArthur, we would be dropping nuclear bombs like, people give out candy at Halloween. Douglas MacArthur, a bit of a crazy person. But yeah, no, there's not always great people in every cabinet.
The world's largest warship to the Indian Ocean.
But you know what, guys? Even then, because of the extraordinary contributions and initiatives of legends like Homi Bhabha, Indira Gandhi, Lal Bahadur Shastri, Dorabji Tata, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and the legendary Abdul Kalam, today India stands as a powerful nuclear state. And this journey took us 51 years and 2 generations of leaders and scientists to reach the destination. And today, their dedication is the reason why India stands at a respectable position in the world economy. But as usual, this is one of the most important chapters of Indian history that is not taught in schools and colleges. And maybe because the world of geopolitics is darker than our imagination. So in this episode today, let's do a deep dive and try to understand what were the most dangerous threats to India from Pakistan, China, and the United States.
Just on a side note, I just remembered, one of the last videos I did between India and Pakistan, there was somebody in the comments who said, and I've admitted, I don't know the issues between India and Pakistan. I don't. Somebody in the comments told me I don't know what's going on there, so I need to mind my own business. And then they called me a mother. So I would like to cover more India-Pakistan because of that mother. And so I responded in kind, and called them the same at the end. So yeah, I would love to cover more, especially knowing that it would annoy that person. That would make me happy.
How did the leaders of India go against these superpowers of the world to establish India as a nuclear state? And what are the study materials to help you understand this critical and important chapter of Indian history? This is a story that dates way back to 1940s India, when World War II had just ended. India had just got her independence, and for the first time in the history of mankind, the leaders of the world had seen the power of a nuclear bomb at Hiroshima.
August 9th, 1945, a United States Army Air Force B-29 dropped a 10,000-pound plutonium bomb nicknamed Fat Man over the city of Nagasaki, Japan, 3 days after Hiroshima.
A city died and 80,000 of its inhabitants were wiped out.
Japan surrendered less than a week later, bringing to an end World War II.
And when people saw what these bombs did to Japan, everybody realized that if they want to command a power in the 21st century, they have to have a nuclear bomb. And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, the nuclear race began, with the most powerful countries including the US, UK and Russia testing their nuclear weapons to prepare for this nuclear race.
On July 16, 1945, the clock ticked down to the first man-made nuclear blast in history.
Finally, after 3 years' work, the atomic experts were ready to test their first bomb. In the control shack was Dr. J.R. Oppenheimer.
President Truman's dramatic announcement that Russia has created an atomic explosion.
In connection with the president's statement that there has been an atomic explosion in the Soviet Union.
While US did their tests in 1945, Russia did it in 1949, UK did it in 1952, France did it in 1960, and lastly, China conducted their tests in 1964. And while these countries were conducting their nuclear tests, nobody in the world said anything. But as soon as this inner circle of world power finished their nuclear tests, they came up with something called the Non-Proliferation Treaty in 1968. This treaty stated that non-nuclear states must commit themselves to not manufacture or acquire nuclear weapons, while nuclear weapon states commit not to in any way assist, encourage or help any non-nuclear state to acquire nuclear weapons. Basically, this treaty said, now that all the big boys have nuclear bombs, let's make sure that nobody else has it. In fact, India actually proposed a fair treaty saying that we all will disarm and promise not to develop weapons as long as the nuclear states promise to completely disarm their nuclear weapons.
I don't think it means that... Hold on, I'm glitching. I don't think it means that we all have nuclear weapons. We got ours. Now you can't have yours. I think it comes down to everyone saw the power and everyone started making it. And then everyone of those five realized if we don't try to stop this, then everyone's going to be using nuclear powers like hand grenades. And it's going to be the one source of weapon that is the first one to be used. And honestly, it should be the last one. It shouldn't even be thought of. Jesus, dog. It shouldn't even be thought of as something we need to consider. It really shouldn't even be around. But I understand why those five, because those five looked at it like, okay, we're just going to keep making it, so we got to stop the flow of making it. Do you think that because India has it, the world is safer from nuclear disaster? No. America's the same. No. Russia? No. China? No. UK? No. France? No. We are one. How do I phrase this? We are one misunderstanding, as I've heard. We are one misunderstanding away from nuclear weapons, from a nuclear exchange. That's it. What would you rather have the opponent use? 100 nuclear weapons towards you, or 100 intercontinental ballistic missiles? I'll take the missiles. Because yeah, you could knock out, a few cities, but we're talking about complete disastrous results if it goes nuclear. So I don't think it's about, well, we got ours, so no, you can't have yours. No, I think there's something greater to that. As I said, it's not about who should and who shouldn't. It's about the realization of, oh, everyone's doing it. This really, the U.S. opened up that can of worms, can't stuff them back in there, but hopefully we can stop people from wanting their own can of worms.
In short, India said, we will drop our weapons provided you do that too. But the harsh reality of geopolitics.
And I think the answer should be yes. You're right. That's a yes. This is one thing we should look at. Completely remove nuclear weapons and say, we all understand the power that we've seen. So let's take a step back, remove all those, and never acknowledge that we made that. Obviously, we can't not acknowledge that they were made and used. But let's pretend like that power doesn't exist. And let's just use conventional weapons and militaries and drones and this and that, which drones really aren't conventional, but you understand. Instead of something that could destroy a city. Let's take a step back. Let's remove that from everyone's arsenal. And if we're going to fight wars, let's fight wars like we do now. You can keep building with technology, but let's remove that weapon. That's a completely logical thing. We'll remove ours if you remove yours. Yes. The answer should be yes. There's clearly going to be some countries that don't do it, and that's why everyone else refuses to do it. Which is
that nobody gives a fish about justice or equality. So it got rejected. But you know what, guys? As soon as the West proposed this unequal deal of non-proliferation, everybody jumped on board and 191 countries signed this treaty. Except India, Pakistan and Israel. And later even North Korea withdrew from it. Now the question over here is, when so many countries signed this deal, why did India not sign it? Well, that is because, ladies and gentlemen, something crazy was happening at the borders of India.
On the 20th of October 1962, the Chinese army launched a massive attack on India.
इस युद्ध से मिली सीख ने भारत को सामरिक तौर पर मजबूत कर दिया था.
On October the 20th, 1962, the first Chinese shells came screaming down, and the war had begun.
On 20th of October 1962, the Chinese invaded Ladakh and Arunachal Pradesh, and India lost about 43,000 square kilometers of land, which was captured by China in Aksai Chin. And from then till today, there have been border tensions between India and China. And then immediately, in just 3 years, we got attacked again by Pakistan, and this led to the 1965 India-Pakistan war.
By April, the armies of India and Pakistan were involved in a full battle over the control of the old Kanjarkot fort.
On top of that, Pakistan started to get cozy with China because we were their common enemy. And during the same time, India was a very, very weak country because our economy was in turmoil. We were facing both severe food shortages and famine problems all across the country. So in short, Pakistan and China was just one attack away from destroying our country. And this vulnerability is the reason why we did not sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty and started speeding up our process of becoming a nuclear state.
And I completely understand. Because they're looking at China, who in 1964 got weapons. I don't know when Pakistan got them. Irregardless. You're looking at one of your, I almost said competitors. Your neighbors, who you have problems with, and has nuclear weapons. The fear is that they're going to launch 1, 5, 10. And what is the repercussions from that? Is the world going to nuke China? No. But you've lost potentially millions. So you need that mutually assured destruction, MAD, as they say. I honestly, when I look at the U.S.'s role in this, it's difficult for me because I think that had we continued to just firebomb Tokyo, we probably wouldn't have needed to use them. But the war would have taken longer. More people would have died. And I get that they wanted to end the war as soon as possible and help rebuild. I get that. I really do. If it saves lives, that's the problem, though. If once you use that, you've unlocked that can of worms. And Oppenheimer was so against it. I mean, he was for it and he was against it. Yeah, I mean, once I'm okay with nuclear weapons. Well, it's not nuclear power in terms of energy. It is the cleanest energy we can have. Nuclear power plants, nuclear ships, nuclear submarines. It is the cleanest power we can make compared to solar, wind. Those things are great, but you need oil for those. Those solar wind turbines, solar turbines. The wind that wasn't me. That was the dogs. That was you, actually. Those things, they need oil. I have solar panels on my roof. Trust me, it's nice, but yeah, nuclear energy is the best. We're all just scared of that one incident where everyone instantly thinks nuclear power. The result is Chernobyl, right? That's the downside. That's when you have, I don't want to get into this. That is, yeah, it's a little different. It's communism, and it's people who, it's just completely different.
And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, the Cold War between India and Pakistan began. Here's where we saw three legends come together to achieve this incredible security deterrence for India, who were Lal Bahadur Shastri, Homi Bhabha, and Dorabji Tata. While Dorabji Tata actively financed research initiatives, Homi Bhabha was able to use this capital to establish world-class institutes like Tata Institute of Fundamental Research and Trombai Atomic Energy Establishment in 1954. And cherry on the cake, in 1965, that is just 1 year after China became a nuclear state, Shastriji actively gave the go-ahead for the production of nuclear explosives in India.
अगर तलवार की नोक पर या एटम बॉम्ब के डर से कोई हमारे देश को झुकाना चाहे, दबाना चाहे, ये देश हमारा दबने वाला नहीं। तो एक सरकार के नाते हमारा क्या जवाब हो सकता है सिवाय इसके कि हम हथियारों का जवाब हथियारों से दें।
And this is what led to the launch of Nuclear Explosive Design Group and something called the Study of Nuclear Explosions for Peaceful Purposes, or SNEPP. And you know what, guys? We were so close to developing this nuclear weapon that in a 1965 interview to All India Radio, Homi Bhabha had said that if we had the green signal, India could make a nuclear bomb in just 18 freaking months. And this sent such shockwaves across Pakistan that the then president of Pakistan, Zulfikar Bhutto, immediately announced, and I quote, "If India builds the bomb, we will eat grass or least even go hungry, but we will get one of our own." So you can imagine the intensity of the Cold War between India and Pakistan, right? But shockingly, in just 3 months, in January 1966, Homi Bhabha died in a plane crash. And what's even more shocking is that in the same freaking month, even Shastriji died due to suspicious reasons. As a result, the nuclear program of India took a hit. And just 5 years later,
it didn't say suspicion, it just said heart attack. So I don't know if there's a conspiracy theory with that.
Another India-Pakistan war broke out in 1971 when Pakistan launched something called Operation Searchlight on East Pakistan, which is modern-day Bangladesh.
There have been many reports of massacres in East Pakistan.
March 1971, the year of the killing begins. By ship and secret airlift, troops are brought to Dhaka. General Tikka Khan, popularly known as the Butcher, is sworn in as military governor. On the night of March 25th, the army moves to crush Bengal.
This was one of the bloodiest events in the history of Asia, whereby the Pakistani army killed 3 million Bengalis. These horrific incidents went on not for 1 or 2 months but 9 long months and resulted into 10 million refugees who crossed the border to India. And the most pathetic thing about this operation was that Pakistan did this just to bully Bangladesh to keep it under its control. But, in this process, the Pakistani army made one big mistake. In December 1971, Pakistani Air Force attacked the airfields in India, and when they did it, it gave India the legal justification to formally enter the war. And although India's motives weren't entirely humanitarian or selfless, the Indian army surrounded the Pakistani army and they put Pakistan in such a position that Pakistan had to surrender to India within just 2 weeks. And in between this war, you know what happened? The United States of America deployed their 75,000-ton 7th Fleet against India in the Bay of Bengal. And this ship, mind you, was no ordinary ship at all. It was the world's largest warship and had a capacity to carry more than 70 fighters and bombers. And on the other side, we had the British ships in the Arabian Sea. So while the Brits were about to target India's western coast, the Americans were about to make a dash into the Bay of Bengal to Bangladesh. And between this British and American fleet was our one and only INS Vikrant with barely 20 light fighter aircrafts. And here's where, as we all know, Russia came to our rescue with a nuclear-armed fleet with 2 cruisers, 2 destroyers, support vessels along with 6 freaking submarines. This is the reason why the Brits and Americans backed out and finally Bangladesh got its independence in March 1971. And this is when Richard Nixon...
Just because there was a ship there, I don't think they were going to go to war with you. It doesn't look good. But also, if India perceived them as enemies, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. If Russia, and I don't know if India and Russia were friendly at the time, but Russia would have been more than happy to jump in to try to help because, hey, you can become our friend now, you know.
The then president of the US actually considered dropping a nuclear bomb in India in 1971. And it's...
I will say this, Nixon said a lot of things. I don't know if you can really believe it. It's easy to say it. But you know what? Now that I think about it, Nixon was big on getting China into the world. I think he was the first American president to ever visit China. China's enemies with India. So now that I'm just kind of putting that together, I could understand why he would be against India. Would he drop a nuclear weapon on him? I don't think so. But could he make that threat to show China, hey, we're on your side, and if this happens, we'll drop the, you know? Okay, I could see that. I could believe that because he's trying to get China. He was trying to welcome China into the world or whatever it was that he said. I don't even remember. But yeah, I could see him taking China. If China and India are going at it, I could see him taking China's side on that. Okay, that makes sense.
Not me who's saying this, is the New York Times itself. This was the horrific threat that was looming upon India when she was at the mercy of the big boys to protect her own territories. So immediately, on 7th of September 1972, Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi authorized the work on nuclear fission device. And a small team of 75 scientists from Baba Atomic Research Center began the process of designing and developing atomic bomb for India. And just 2 years later, the first nuclear test was conducted in India in 1974 under an operation called Smiling Buddha.
It is clear that in order to meet our growing requirements of energy for agriculture and industry, we must produce more electricity. Our science, particularly our nuclear science, is dedicated to development, to achieving freedom from want and providing the essentials of an honorable life for our masses.
But this was not a weapons-grade test, but was a peaceful nuclear explosion that could be used for mining techniques or to conduct large underground works. And just when we were about to upgrade to the nuclear weapon stage, India met...
Stupid question. you blow up a nuclear weapon underground, as he was saying, for all these other kinds of things. Doesn't that put radiation into the ground? So wouldn't that land be radiated to try to have your people working in? Or am I just completely wrong?
With another series of hurdles. The emergency happened, the government collapsed, the economy went topsy-turvy, and the second oil shock happened in 1979.
Sorry, I just muted myself mid-sentence. 1979, great year, I hear. That's just what I hear.
The proclamation of emergency meant that not only elections were banned, but there was strict censoring of the press as well. The period was termed as the darkest hour in Indian history.
The oil-producing countries of the Arab world decided to use their oil as a political weapon. They will reduce oil production by 5% a month until the Israeli...
What did that one sign say?
The oil-producing countries of the Arab world decided to use their oil as a political weapon. They...
Out of gas, rent a bike. Oh, that's good. Out of gas, rent a bike.
They will reduce oil production by 5% a month until the Israelis withdraw from occupied territories.
We face the possibility of temporary fuel shortages and some increases in fuel prices in America.
So again, for the next 20 years, due to economic and political hurdles, we could not pursue a nuclear status at all.
Wait a minute. Nixon was gone in 1979. That was Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter was 39. Nixon was 36. 36th president. Carter got into office at 76. 77. He is 39. 38 was... wait a minute. Why am I going backwards? Kennedy. Kennedy's 35. Nixon 36. Wow, I'm missing somebody. Stop. Okay, 32 was FDR. 33 was Truman. 34 was Eisenhower. 35 was Kennedy. Oh, 36 was LBJ. Lyndon Baines Johnson. 37 was Nixon. 38 was Ford. 39 was Kennedy. Carter. So Nixon was gone by 1979. So I think there was an error there. Because the oil crisis in America did happen under Carter. But Nixon was long gone by then.
But you know what, guys? During this time, that is from 1975 to 1995, the Indian Army knew very, very well that China was sharing technology and materials with Pakistan. And they also knew that the Pakistani army would soon have nuclear weapons. And if they did, do you realize we would be cornered by two of our neighbors who possessed nuclear?
China signed that document that said they wouldn't help another country get it, though, right? They wouldn't help them proliferate nuclear material or whatever. Maybe they weren't helping them, but they were giving them a blueprint of this is what you need, and then this is how you put it all together. So they would have violated then that own agreement.
Bombs. But somehow, we could not do anything about it. So the question over here is, how did India handle the situation, and how the hell did we hack our way to become a nuclear state? Well, here's where we saw another ray of hope in 1995. By this time, India had opened up its economy, we started growing at a phenomenal pace, and eventually, we again came to a position to focus on our nuclear project. This is when PM Narasimha Rao approved a nuclear test, but unfortunately, the CIA detected suspicious movement at Pokhran and the mission was aborted. And 1 year later, we again tried to conduct the test, but it was put to hold again because of a call from CIA officials. But this is where, ladies and gentlemen, for the third time in 1996, Atal Bihari Vajpayee came to power. And this is where we saw 3 more legends come together to fulfill the long-standing nuclear dream of India. And
how about this? CIA called. They know you're doing a nuclear weapon. Cool. Tell them they're right. Okay. What is India reliant on the CIA? Yeah, the CIA's job is to know who's doing what. But I don't know why India would need to back down because the CIA called you. Like, who cares? Who gives a turkey? That's what they say.
They were Atal Bihari Vajpayee, APJ Abdul Kalam from DRDO, and R. Chidambaram ji, who was the chief of the Department of Atomic Energy in India. But even before they could get started, Vajpayee ji's government fell in just 13 days.
और ये सरकार अंतर विरोधों में घिरी हुई देश का कितना लाभ कर सकेगी, ये एक प्रश्नवाचक चिन्ह है। हम अपने देश की सेवा के कार्य में जुटे रहेंगे। हम संख्या बल के सामने सर झुकाते हैं और आपको विश्वास दिलाते हैं कि जो कार्य हमने अपने हाथ में लिया है, वो जब तक राष्ट्रीय उद्देश्य पूरा नहीं कर लेंगे, तब तक विश्राम से नहीं बैठेंगे, तब तक आराम से नहीं बैठेंगे। अध्यक्ष महोदय, मैं अपना त्यागपत्र राष्ट्रपति महोदय को देने जा रहा हूं।
And again, for the next 2 years, nothing happened. And then came the climax year of 1998 when Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji again became the Prime Minister of India. So immediately on 8th of April, R. Chidambaram and APJ Abdul...
I'm sorry. Did he resign because they kept stopping the nuclear progression because the CIA kept calling? And that's why he resigned? He's saying, we're going to do this. I don't care. He resigns, they vote him back in, and that's when he decides, we're doing this, I don't care. Is that how I'm understanding it? Because I totally think, who cares if the CIA knows? The CIA can't tell your country what to do.
Kalam was summoned, thumbs up was given for the test, and the entire operation was conducted in such high secrecy that nobody except the then Home Minister knew about it. And the rest, as we saw in the Parmanu movie, an incredible team was set up at Pokhran. The team very cleverly avoided the US spy satellites with super accurate calculations. The nuclear devices were also flown from different parts of the country to avoid suspicion. And finally, on 11th of May 1998, at around 3:45 PM, India tested 3 devices, which were Shakti 1, Shakti 2 and Shakti 3. This was followed by 2 more detonations of Shakti 4 and Shakti 5. And finally, the grand announcement was made by India to the world.
Today, at 15:45 hours, India conducted 3 underground nuclear tests in the Pokhran range.
This is how, ladies and gentlemen, India became a nuclear power. And you know what? Just 2 weeks later, Pakistan responded with its own atomic blast and became a nuclear power too. So you see, it was quite obvious and true that Pakistan was being supported by China or US to corner India. This is how critical this nuclear testing was for the security of India. And all thanks to our brave and genius scientists and leaders, India today is one among just the 9 nuclear states in the world. And although US...
Give me a second, I'm going to check something. Okay. So since this happened in 1998, I wanted to check something. This was President Bill Clinton. President Clinton's administration initially approached India's nuclear weapons program with a strong focus on preventing proliferation, seeking to cap, roll back, and eliminate India's nuclear weapons. The policy was based on the belief that nuclear proliferation in South Asia would destabilize the region and threaten global security. So I'm going to guess they didn't want to piss off China. Makes sense, right? Because China needs to be the I don't want to say the big swinging dick, but, that's what they need. Then, however, following India's nuclear tests in 1998, the Clinton administration's approach shifted. While still urging India to sign the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, CTBT, and take other steps to reduce nuclear dangers, the focus became more on nuclear restraint rather than outright elimination. This shift implied a tacit acceptance of India's nuclear capabilities. Before 98 tests, Clinton administration vigorously opposed India's nuclear program and advocated for international efforts to prevent its spread. So I think the whole goal was not to offend, from the American side, India having the nuclear weapons going to affect China. We all understand how fragile China's ego is. That's what I hear. Can't say that on the internet, apparently. After the test, the U.S. imposed sanctions on India. Really? Aiming to pressure the country to sign the CTBT and to limit its nuclear program. However, the U.S. also engaged in intensive diplomacy with India, trying to persuade it to take steps towards nuclear restraint. So I'm guessing the nuclear restraint is, hey, look, we know you don't like China. We know you don't like Pakistan. Please don't start a nuclear war between the two of you, or the three of you. Shift in policy. The Clinton administration eventually moved towards a more conciliatory approach, acknowledging India's security concerns. There you go, and accepting the need for a minimum credible deterrent. There you go. You can't have two enemies on your border, and one's telling the other how to make nuclear weapons, and they both don't like you. So I understand why there's the shift in policy. Look, you having a nuke, them having nukes. Hopefully that means no one's going to use nukes. While not endorsing India's nuclear status, the U.S. sought to encourage India to maintain nuclear restraint, enhance export controls, and participate in international arms control negotiations. So kind of the U.S. wanted to bring you on board. In summary, Clinton administration initially aimed to eliminate India's nuclear weapons program, but the goal was not fully realized. Really? Following India's test, the administration shifted to a policy of tact acceptance, focused on measures to ensure nuclear restraint and stability in the region, while also seeking to improve bilateral relations with India. This is another one. I don't know how accurate this is. In the early stages of India's nuclear program, the United States and Canada provided key support, including the CIRUS reactor. CIRUS reactor? The CIRUS reactor supplied by Canada produced plutonium used in India's first nuclear test. The U.S. also provided heavy water for the reactor. So how in the hell are we telling India you can't do this, and yet we're helping? How can the U.S. be on both sides? Hey, look, we're going to show you how to bake a cake. We just don't want you to actually bake a cake because cakes are delicious. We don't want you guys to ever have them. Who gave Pakistan nuclear weapons? China and individuals like Abdul Qadir Khan. I don't know who that is. Okay. Does Canada have nuclear weapons? No. Okay.
Impose sanctions on us, it was lifted soon, and India today is not just the second fastest growing. USA today is one among just the 9 nuclear states in the world. And although US imposed sanctions on us, it was lifted soon, and India today is not just the second fastest.
I bet you those sanctions were put on and then lifted because the US wanted them to sign that CTBT, so they put the sanctions on. It didn't work, so then they removed the sanctions and were like, okay, you're part of the world group now of limited countries that have it. We can't punish you because we have them ourselves. So we've got to bring you into the fold of this group of countries, this small group of countries who now have to try to let people know we can't do this. That's got to be what happened.
Fastest growing economy, but also a powerful state that can voice an opinion that is seriously considered by the world. And this brings me to the last part of the episode, which are the study materials to help you dig deeper into this unsung achievement of India. Meanwhile, if you are someone who is interested in learning more about how India became a nuclear power, you should listen to this audiobook from Koku FM. In fact, during the research of this video, I listened to this audiobook and gained a lot of insights on how India managed.
I'm going to go ahead and guess that's the end of the video because I don't need to.
That can help you in knowing more about the nuclear powers and geopolitics.
Yeah, I don't need to know about any of this. Okay. Well, this is interesting. I've been drinking, and when I drink, I tend to get a little talky. So I apologize if you didn't want to listen to me. If you did, this is a fantastic day for you, apparently. So we're going to end it here. Until next time, have a good day, have a good night.